Today I am driving this 2017 Tesla Model X 100D. As most of you will know, the Model X was Tesla's crossover SUV vehicle, joining the Model S in the lineup. They currently have 3 vehicles now: the Model S, the Model X, and the Model 3. The Model X definitely brings a lot of different aspects that the Model S was not able to do. It was a newer launch vehicle, so they brought out some cooler technology that the refreshed Model S now does have. But this is my second time driving a Model X. I also got to experience a 100D when I was out in California and San Francisco. I've driven a couple Tesla Model S's before. This is the most extensive amount of time I'm going to get to spend with a modern Tesla, though, and I'm pretty happy and excited so far. If we start out with some of the number basics, it can get a little bit confusing and overwhelming. Recently, I believe Tesla did start reducing some of the different models because it was getting a little too complex. As you go like 75, 75D, 90, and there's an 85, and there's 100, and there's a P1, and you're like, why are there so many of them? And there's letters and numbers all over the place. In short now, the 100 stands for 100 kilowatt hours, the capacity of the battery pack. So that is the largest one available for this car right now. The D means it is all-wheel drive. This one is not the P. The P is where you see all the headlines of the crazy fast, ludicrous acceleration mode, 0 to 60 in under 3 seconds for an SUV, blah, blah, blah. This is just a regular 100D, but that does not mean it's slow. It's claimed 0 to 60 in under 5 seconds, something like 4.8, and top speed of 155 miles an hour. I mean, like, hello, there's another Model X. That's a funny coincidence. What was I saying? Blah, 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 the numbers. This one also, with the larger battery pack, has a larger range. I think it's claimed that somewhere around 295 miles, which will vary depending on how you're driving, temperature conditions, stuff like that. Let's see, those numbers out of the way, impressions. The exterior styling. I really do like the Model X. When it first came out, I was like, it looks like a giant computer mouse, actually. I really like how there's no grille on the front. With the Model S, I was like, why do they need the grille? It doesn't need the airflow up there for an engine. There's a trunk up there. I feel like they really should have styled it in a more futuristic way to just make it completely stand out from the crowd, because it has such a great amount of technology to it. And it really does feel like it's coming from the future, that the styling should convey that. The Model X checks a lot more of these boxes. It doesn't really look like any other SUV out there. The shape, it's more of like a crossover type of size vehicle, I think. It's got like the sloping tail reminiscent of something like an X6M or like a Mercedes GLE. The doors, you can't get away from the doors. They call them Falcon doors. They're like remote operated. You can use a button or the key fob. They open upwards automatically, and it's pretty dang awesome. Are they necessary? I don't think so. Are they cool? Yeah, you bet. They're really cool. They might have, sometimes they have, I've heard of them having a little issues. So far with this car, I mean, they've worked flawlessly. You can open them with the key fob from inside the car from this giant touchscreen. So overall exterior styling, I like the Model S because it stands out completely differently. I like the latest Tesla styling on this and the Model S, less so with the Model 3. I'm not a huge fan of the way that car looks, but in the white paint with the big 22-inch black wheels on this car, I think it looks really, really cool. Moving to the interior, all the Teslas are, I mean, pretty much identical in terms of the fact that they use all the switchgear and buttons, and it's all dominated by this massive, massive touchscreen. I don't remember the exact inch size, but it's probably bigger than your MacBook or your laptop, whatever you're using. It's huge. Really great responses, and you control everything from there, from music to climate to opening and closing doors to opening your garage door. It's extremely powerful, and it responds really quickly. You can go watch YouTube videos on it too. And in the center is everything is a virtual display on this car. There really aren't that many buttons. There's some switchgear and buttons that there are clearly sourced from Mercedes. I mean, these window switches, if you've been in a Mercedes, like from 5 years ago, it's the same window switches. The transmission stock for changing between park, reverse, neutral, drive is straight out of a Mercedes. And some people might complain about that. I actually don't really mind, because it means it's going to work. And Tesla did not have to waste time, money, resources dedicated to engineering, developing that. Instead, they could spend their time on the cool stuff like the battery packs, the drivetrain, and the other technology, Autopilot, stuff like that. Overall, though, my big complaint is the interior is, don't go into it expecting really, really luxurious. Now, it's not cheap. The materials are pretty nice, actually, in this car spec. The leather is good quality. It has the carbon fiber and the suede, which are really nice. But this car is over $100,000. The Model X, I mean, this one's probably 130, 140. Some of them get even more expensive, $1,000. And that's like a very nicely loaded, a Range Rover, an Audi Q7, something like that. That is a Mercedes. Those cars are going to have more of the nicer, maybe interior design, the materials, the wood trim, stuff like that. Where this car feels a lot more basic and Spartan. You got to go into this, you're paying not for the luxury SUV, you're paying for the technology. It's really futuristic, and I mean the performance and the stuff you can do with it, let's see, is really, really awesome. But I mean, other aspects of the interior, again, it's a little more basic and Spartan, but it's very spacious. I mean, another big dominant thing you notice with the Model X, I think it has the largest production car windshield. This one massive expansive glass that goes from up there all the way to above your head. It feels very open. Visibility in the back is not that great, obviously, because of the way it slopes down. The wing is up there, and it obstructs that a little bit. Front space, I mean, I feel it's very open and spacious, and then the rear seats also are pretty practical. You can option these with more seats. I think you can do 6 or 7 seat configurations. Owner of this one did not opt to do that, didn't have kids, did not need that. Moving on to how does it drive. It's one of the coolest parts to it. If you've never driven a pure electric car, I almost don't miss the internal combustion, because obviously they're so different. I love internal combustion cars. An AMG V8 stuffed in Mercedes GLS or something is crazy, because they took a 7-seater and gave it 570 horsepower. This is really cool in a different way. It's so smooth, and I mean, it's obviously quiet, but it does make noise. You get this like high-pitched whirring noise as you accelerate. That's the electric motors making noise, and it's the instantaneous torque. This makes a good amount of power. And even though it's not the P, it is still fast. It'll push you back in your seat, and no matter what, you just plant it and you go. There's no waiting for a transmission, the downshift. It just goes. Every other aspect of it, it is an SUV, but it doesn't really drive as if it's like an SUV. It handles quite well. It drives more like a slightly lifted car. I mean, body roll is very minimally contained, and it doesn't feel huge. It feels open and airy, but it doesn't feel ponderous or anything like that. I mean, I'm really comfortable driving it right now. Ride quality is not the best. I'm actually just turned on a perfectly smooth road, so it's actually great right now, but it's on 22-inch wheels. You can vary the ride height of the vehicle, so that can improve it a little bit, but it doesn't quite ride quite as smoothly as some of the other luxury cars out there. Trade-off is you get really cool-looking, massive 22-inch wheels, and it handles really well. It's not a supercar, sports car that you're going to be tracking all the time. But for the size of it and the proportions and the higher center of gravity, I'm really impressed. Higher center of gravity, that leads to something else that Tesla is able to do. Battery packs are heavy. If you put them down towards the bottom of the vehicle, it really helps lower your center of gravity, because all the heavier stuff is down towards the bottom with the motors and stuff like that. But overall, I mean, driving it, just cruising around, you get the overwhelming impression this feels like it's from the future. The technology. Some people might get overwhelmed initially, but once you're comfortable with it, I can imagine this appeals to me, being loving modern stuff, futuristic stuff. The tech is all there. All the screens are amazing. Autopilot has hit the press a lot, blah, blah, blah. A lot of people talk about that, know about that. And it's able to pretty much drive this car by itself on the freeway, and then in certain situations you can use it. It can change lanes by itself, and it's cool. The display is constantly showing me, like, it's tracking this car in front. It's showing this little gray vehicle in front, so it knows there's a minivan driving right in front of me. You can see cars around you. There's cameras everywhere. Everything is very high quality, and just the overall experience driving it is really impressive. Now, ownership-wise, there are several downsides to owning a Tesla. My friend who owns this car, they also have a Model S. This is his specific Model X in his auto experience. So actually, we just made an ownership video. Check that out to hear really great, in-depth knowledge from an owner who's had a lot of Teslas over the years. But I mean, just doing this test drive so far and the time I spent with them, I really like it. This is definitely one direction that the future of vehicles could go, and I think it's really, really cool. If we talk value, it's definitely a very expensive vehicle. You can compare it. It doesn't have a quite direct competitor that's pure electric yet. Jaguar is going to come out with their I-Pace. Volvo has a hybrid T8 XC90, which is also a luxury SUV, but it's a hybrid. It's not pure electric. I'm sure companies will start entering this realm. Probably sedans first with the Porsche Mission E concept, stuff like that. Eventually, there will be more vehicles like this. But you can't. I would. I mean, there are a lot of people who would cross-shop this against a Lexus or a Mercedes or a BMW. I would be willing to do that because it checks a lot of the boxes for the competitor. They're not cheap. You can go for lower capacity ones with smaller battery packs. They're going to be below $100,000. Let's just say you're going to spend 6 figures on a Model X. Is it worth it? If you have the means to do it, I think it is, because if you like the technology, you don't want to get a Mercedes. You want something that stands out. It got autopilot, the crazy doors, all this other stuff. But again, there will be some headaches that come with it. Would I want to own one after driving it? I think, there's another Model S. Actually, I'm seeing a lot of Teslas today. After driving it, I think it'd be pretty cool. I don't know if I'd want it to be my primary vehicle. I think this would be as cool as like a third car or something. You already have the sports car and a nice sedan, and then this is your utility vehicle that also has some cool technology. I don't know. I don't really know quite the demographics that are buying Teslas. But overall, very, very impressed with this technology. This specific car is spec'd very nicely. Really enjoyed spending time with it. A lot of really great features. I have a few ideas in my mind of other videos that we could make with this car and showing cool different features. If anything you want to see or know about, please comment below. If any questions, also please comment below. Thanks for watching.